All right, folks, good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome in to the WNBA 365 Network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home for everything revolving around the WNBA and the rest of the women's basketball world on a freaky, fresh, funky Friday edition of the WNBA 365 Network for Playoff Central for the final day of September the 30th, 2016. Good evening, folks. Alongside, in the meantime, right now, Tanisha Stewart joining us up from Los Angeles. We are hoping to be joined by Crystal Thomas sometime momentarily from somewhere near Staples Center following the conclusion of Game 2 between the Sparks and Sky. And, of course, Cal McClure joining you folks here tonight as normal from Studio 171 in San Diego for at least the last week or so before we do officially move out of here and do move out and get our new place put in here sometime in about 2 weeks. Shorty, good to see you tonight after two more great games, but again, two more rough scoreboard games at least to watch tonight. I don't know how those Shorties going tonight. Good to see you.
Hey, it's going good so far, and yes, both of these games were pretty much, more of the same, but nevertheless, a good night of basketball.
Of course, folks, we would love and appreciate your input on anything in regards to tonight's games, the women's basketball world, or anything going on with us. Of course, on Facebook, Twitter, and in our live chat box over on facebook.com/WNBA365. Or feel free to hit us up over on Twitter at WNBA365, at Calamac3, at ShortyMamba24, or at Pup1010 if Crystal is coming tonight with the hashtag WNBA365. Or if you are viewing us live right now on our viewing page, hit up the live chat box in the right corner of your screen. Type in your responses. We'll be sure to get to your questions, comments, or concerns when we have a break in tonight's action. With that, Shorty, we'll talk some defense first. The Defensive Player of the Year and first and second team defensive player or defensive teams for the 2016 season were announced today. Sylvia Fowles of the Minnesota Lynx is your 2016 WNBA Defensive Player of the Year, and also announced a couple days ago was Breanna Stewart taking home the 2016 WNBA Rookie of the Year, along with Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve winning her second WNBA Coach of the Year award. Sure, starting off with Big Sil in the defensive front, of course. Obviously, we kind of thought at least that once Brittany Griner came into the WNBA her rookie year, that award was going to have to be pried out of her hands for her to not lose that award. Well, it has already been now by Big Sil, who had another fantastic season for Minnesota. Really, of course, and many times, surely their last line of defense came up in big situations, either against LA in big moments of either the first game they played or in the third game they played at Staples Center. And really, has sort of had a career resurgence after her, starting off her career in Chicago. And, of course, as well, Shorty also named today to the defensive teams as well. Shorty, overall thoughts first on Sil taking home the Defensive Player of the Year honors first and foremost in your mind. What do you think?
Well, for the most part, at least in my opinion, it wasn't a surprise. I mean, Big Sil is that big anchor in Minnesota's defense, and she's pretty much the last line of defense. So if any, opponent, slices through, Way and Augustus or even Maya, they're then stopped by the big brick wall of Sylvia Fowles. And, she done that for most of the season for them. She led the league in the overall defensive rating. So, it wasn't a surprise. And, you talked about Brittany Griner, formerly, that was her award and hers to lose. But for this season, she wasn't all that great defensively. She gained a lot of fouls, especially in tonight's game. For some reason, she forgot how to move her feet on defense. So, when seeing that from Brittany Griner throughout the year, we pretty much, or at least I pretty much knew that it would definitely be a Big Sil's award to take home.
Now, Shorty, going to Breanna Stewart, of course, the hotshot rookie from a Storm out of UConn, of course. And this is at least, I want to say, I'm probably wrong, at least the third, maybe fourth straight year we've seen a #1 draft pick win the Rookie of the Year award. Now, of course, it wasn't that way in 2013 when Brittany Griner did not win. It was Elena Deladon's to lose in 2013. And then recently, it seemed like, Shorty, at least 2014, 2015, now 2016, that the award for the Rookie of the Year has sort of been, going to that #1 draft pick. But Shorty, when you see, though, like year after year between Lloyd and now Stewie winning the award, at least in recent memory, Shorty, I guess overall thoughts, I guess, on sort of the #1 draft pick sort of being that Rookie of the Year player pretty much the last 2, maybe 3 years in your mind? What do you think?
I mean, it just, shows the consistency, going through the number one draft pick, because as number one, you are expected to dominate your class and dominate the field. You were chosen as the best player of the class. So, it wasn't a surprise when Brianna Story definitely came through. I mean, she had a monster rookie season, 18 points, 9 rebounds a game. As I said in the last show, she surpassed the great Lisa Leslie, for all-time defensive rebounds in a single season. So, I mean, she, just has been spectacular, and also she was, pretty much the main reason, why the Storm got into at least the playoff conversation, and playoff contention, because as the previous year, they drafted Jewel Loy. I mean, she was definitely great and definitely earned her Rookie of the Year honors. However, they were still struggling because they needed that extra piece, that added, solid player in Brianna Stewart, became that player for them. And also definitely a big accomplishment for Seattle, as they are now, the only franchise in the WNBA to have consecutive Rookie of the Year winners. So it was definitely a good year overall for the Seattle Storm.
Folks, you're now privileged to be joined in the Hangout by our good pal, Marquez Anderson from StarsHoops.net down in the Bayou State over at Louisiana State University. Mr. Anderson, good to see you tonight, buddy. How's it going? Thanks for staying up late.
Hi, friends.
Of course, folks, find Marquez on Twitter, of course, his handle at @omarquez on Twitter. Marquez, we will stay with this discussion first, and we'll go back to you momentarily to talk more about your homegirl, Sylvia Fowles, winning the Defensive Player of the Year. But again, Marquez, as we just brought up again, Brianna Stewart recently named WNBA Rookie of the Year, of course, a couple of days ago, and as Shorty alluded to, first time in league history, it looks like at least, that we've had a team winning back-to-back consecutive Rookie of the Year awards, at least the Storm winning it for the first time in back-to-back years. Marquez, overall thoughts on Stewie taking home the honors this year for the Storm?
Oh, yeah, that was pretty much a given as soon as she entered the league. I mean, she came in with hype and she lived up to it. And I would say she may have exceeded some of the expectations that some had for her. So, I mean, it was easy to see why she won. I mean, she just had a fantastic year, breaking records, leading the Storm to the playoffs in her first year in the league. That was huge. And you can tell that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with to come.
Now, Marquez, we'll play a two-man game right now and run down the shot clock on this one. Again, Sylvia Fowles named today the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, Marquez, you know a lot about this player, watching her play at your current school, of course, at LSU, and what she meant to that program and means to that program still. Now seeing her excel in Minnesota after a few years in Chicago. And I guess, Marquez, what Short and I banked on earlier was, here when Brittany Griner entered the WNBA in 2013, that pretty much this award was going to be pretty much in her grasp until someone could pry it out of her hands. And that was the case this season with how Sylvia really just dominated and owned it. Was really, that player that would intimidate you if you were going to go in that post and look to score 2 points for your team. 9 times out of 10, she was there saying, not today, try again some other time. MA, overall thoughts on Big Sil taking home the Defensive Player of the Year awards for the Lynx this season?
Oh, yeah, she's been a fantastic defensive presence her whole career, basically. Even back at LSU, she was the intimidator for us down low. So it's really good to see her be able to translate and be able to defend as well as she has. And, I mean, this year she's just been fantastic on the defensive end, blocking, just being a force in a big, tough matchup down low for Minnesota. It was just something big for them that they needed.
So again, folks, Sylvia Fowles of the Minnesota Lynx, your 2016 WNBA Defensive Player of the Year. Now, Shorty, probably the one that probably raised a few eyebrows was Cheryl Reeve being named the Coach of the Year. Now, honestly, it was probably going to be between her, Brian Agler, and maybe, very long shot, maybe Jenny Busick of the Seattle Storm, of course. Probably Agler, maybe a bit more deserving in people's minds for the turnaround he had Los Angeles on after that very warful 2015 season, and now here they are, number 2 seed, and 20-plus wins later in 2016. But, of course, Cheryl Reeve led the Lynx to a franchise record now in wins for the regular season. Now with the win tonight, Shorty, 20 games over 500 at home in the postseason, 23-3 on their home floor in the postseason. So, Shorty, obviously, this was one race that was kind of like the MVP race. Could have gone a lot of different directions. Obviously, a lot of people maybe saying Brian Agler is Coach of the Year, but, of course, At some point, though, Shorty, you know, with the recent track record of how the Lynx have put themselves on the WNBA map as a franchise under Cheryl's guidance, no better option in my mind is for Cheryl to take home the award. But Shorty, though, overall thoughts on this pretty narrow debate and narrow vote as well, again, with Cheryl Reeve, not Agler, being named Coach of the Year. In your mind, what do you think?
Yeah, a lot of people had many questions about, you know, the final result, but I definitely didn't have any questions. I think it was well deserved by Cheryl Reeve, and much respect to Brian Agler for the season, you know, Los Angeles has had. But I pretty much figured after the Sparks' second half woes, just going 5 of 5 in the second half, I pretty much sure. I pretty much, you know, figured that, you know, the committee were going to knock him for that in Cheryl Reeve. On the other hand, with the Lynx, you know, kept it consistent, kept them playing well consistently. You know, they started off the season 13-0, a league record, and then they ended it, you know, with a 28 win, which is a franchise record for the Lynx. So with all the accomplishments, you know, Coach Reeve and the Lynx has had this season, you know, it was pretty much no doubt in my mind that she would be earning the award.
So again, Marquez, a pretty interesting vote, perhaps in some viewers, some fans' minds, maybe a lot of perhaps some negative thoughts, I guess, from most of the LA fan base. But again, Marquez, as you probably they'll compare the second half of the season for both teams. Of course, Minnesota was able to run away with the #1 seed after LA, of course, kind of collapsed a little bit, going an even Steven 5-5, where, you know, it was pretty even, though I would say, through the first half. But again, it is a 2-half season. You saw where Minnesota went for their second half, where LA went for their second half of the season. So obviously, two different, you know, coaches taking their teams different ways. Again, I do, though, kind of see why Agler's in the mix, of course, because he had a pretty big turnaround to get this LA team from being, you know, dreadful and brutal to watch on nights like last year to being back where the Sparks should be, or should have been probably probably a couple years ago. But again, Marquez, I think, though, too, with the recent history, though, Cheryl Reeve, too, with what she's helped build in Minneapolis or in St. Paul for the postseason, with how the Lynx have really put themselves on the map now in the WNBA, the 3 titles, everything else included, very much deserving over Brian Agler in my mind as well. But Marquez, what do you think, though, about this other pretty narrow postseason award race between both Agler and Reeve for WNBA Coach of the Year?
Yeah, it was pretty much even for a big, long part of the season, but I think the turning point and the deciding factor ultimately was Minnesota kind of finished off better than LA did. LA had that little slide, and they kind of struggled at the end, and then they finally regained what they were playing. They regained the style of which they were playing earlier. So I think that was the decision making. But I've seen other people mention names like Michael Cooper because he exceeded expectations in Atlanta, and like you said, Jenny Busick was a long shot, but I saw people throwing her name around. But ultimately, it went to Reeve, and I think that was the best decision.
Now, Shorty, I recall best last postseason, of course, when Bill Laimbeer won the award and then was subsequently knocked out by Stephanie White, who also got consideration. I remember the uproar on Twitter amongst pretty much the entire league fan base about, okay, why didn't White win it? Because she just beat the Coach of the Year. Of course, Shorty, this only factors in regular season accomplishments. So even if LA was to somehow, some way, very doubtful in my mind, but if they were able to somehow beat Minnesota, if they get to the finals, and then we have the uproar again, it really doesn't matter because, of course, this was only regular season stuff. But again, Shorty, do you believe, though, that perhaps, again, this is a very long shot, long-winded response or question, but should the Coach of the Award, I guess, also factor in postseason success, though, too, much like what we saw last season with Stephanie White, again, beating the Coach of the Year and Bill Laimbeer, as to who truly should get the award in your mind, or what do you think?
In my mind, it could possibly, maybe in the future, the WNBA might consider it, but for right now, it is a regular season award. You know, no matter how much of the uproar, you know, fans have, you know, when looking at the coach in the regular season versus a coach that may, you know, outdo themselves in the postseason or rise up as a dark horse. But at the end of the day, it is a regular season award. So each coach in the league is judged on the regular season record. So that's pretty much how the committee and how it factors into who receives the award.
So again, Marquez, more so looking back at last year. Now, again, Bill Laimbeer got the award for a Brian Agler type of turnaround. Of course, he got the Liberty out of the ditch and got them the #1 spot in the Eastern Conference last year before they were defeated by Stephanie White in the Fever, who also was getting votes for the Coach of the Year award. And again, there was some minor uproar in regards amongst the WNBA fan community, of course, on social media about, okay, so here the Coach of the Year loses, so why doesn't she get the award for being the Coach of the Year? Now, again, it was kind of two teams that kind of course, were able to kind of turn things around. But I guess Marquez, probably in the future, again, very long-winded, long shot question again being asked here. But again, could the WNBA perhaps, I guess, factor in postseason success, though, too, when they're voting for Coach of the Year in your mind?
Yeah, I think it should just ultimately be like a regular season award, just like everything else is. Because, I mean, you can't really account for what may or may not happen in the postseason until it actually happens. So I just think it should stay, what you do in the regular season matters more so in terms of those awards, because the regular season is so much longer and there's so much more to account for. So I think there may be a little bit of concern, uproar when it doesn't turn out being the right decision. But I mean, when the WNBA is making the decision of who wins at that juncture in time, you can't really control or predict what will happen after.
So again, folks, big congratulations and a shout out to both Sylvia Fowles and Cheryl Reeve of the Minnesota Lynx, who are bringing home Defensive Player of the Year and Coach of the Year honors from the 2016 season. All right, MA and Shorty, let's talk some hoops finally. Game 2's on the schedule tonight from both St. Paul and Los Angeles. Beginning, guys, with the Mercury and Lynx Game 2. Not much change. It is still all about Minnesota. They win tonight's game in pretty slow-paced fashion with over 50 fouls called in the game. The Lynx to win the game, guys, 96-86 over PHX. Final box score for the Mercury this evening. Diana Taurasi, 31 points. And really not a whole lot of support behind her this evening. Penny Taylor was 16 before she fouled out tonight. Marta Chargai with 11. Candace Dupree, DeWanda Bonner combined for 20 points, 10 points each. Isabel Harrison was 6. And Brittany Griner held to only 2 points in tonight's game. Lindsey Harding, no points in 2 minutes played. And Misty Bass, no points in 7 minutes played. Kelsey Bone, Alex Harden, Sonja Petrovic, all DNPs for Sandy Brondello's Mercury. Coach's decision. For the Minnesota Lynx, Maya Moore, red hot again, 26 points. Lindsay Whalen chipped in 16, including the dagger 3 with 5 seconds to go in the ball game after a steal and takeaway in the Phoenix attacking front court. Sylvia Fowles chipped in 14, and Rebecca Brunson also added 13. Gia Perkins added 12, and Simone Augustus picked up 9 in the game. Natasha Howard was 6 in the game. Renee Montgomery, no points in 15 minutes played. Anna Cruz, Keisha Hampton, and Janelle McCarville, all 3 players DNPs. Coach's decision. The game played from Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. The total attendance tonight, 11,923 at the X. Time of the game, 2 hours and 50 minutes. The officials that called those 50-plus fouls in the game were Byron Jarrett, Jeff Smith, and Maj Forsberg. No techs in the game, 1 lead change in 3 different times. This game was tied. But again, Shorty, much like the previous game on Wednesday, not much really changed. It still, though, is the fact, again, of really no one stepping up for the Mercury once more. Again, as I said, guys, Brittany Griner only is able to add in 2 points, and Phoenix was called for 20 fouls. But also, guys, they had 20 apple turnovers in the oven tonight as opposed to only 12 for Minnesota. Shorty, the woes of Phoenix of the first half at least are now coming back, and much like next month, Shorty, they are haunting Phoenix right now, and it's become a living nightmare through 2 games. Shorty, what do you think right now is probably going through the mind of Phoenix right now as they look at this 0-2 hole they're staring down going into Game 3 on Sunday?
I think they're just looking at the mistakes that happened during the game. I mean, they pretty much had the lane. They had the lane, even with, Big Sil being that defensive anchor. I mean, they still had, a wide open lane, and they missed too many layups, if they're not missing layups, they were getting blocked by Seal and Brunson, in those games. So I'm pretty sure you're just looking at all the missed layups and all the missed opportunities they had in the game. Also, I'm pretty sure Brittany Griner is looking back at just the mess of a game she had. Like you said, she only had 2 points in the first quarter, picking up 2 quick fouls already. I mean, you shouldn't even have to remind BG that she needs to play smarter than that. And, her coach shouldn't have to remind her that she needs to play smarter than that. But still, time and time again, she makes so many mistakes. She fouls without, moving her feet. She's so focused on, blocking the shot. I mean, you can't block every shot against a team like Minnesota. They're too smart for that. They're not going to allow that to happen. And especially
All right, so we had a minor technical. All right, there we go. Go on, Shorty. You froze a bit, but you're good. Go on.
Oh, are we still on?
Yes, you're still good. Go on. All right, Shorty is having some minor technical faults. We'll get to her, back with her momentarily. So again, Marquez, as I alluded to, other than Diana Taurasi, there was really no one there helping out for Phoenix tonight, but also to kind of go into classic rock for a bit as well, Marquez. A little Steve Miller Band for you guys. Ooh, 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 take the money and run. Not only that, though, as well, Marquez, 12 steals, too, for Minnesota in this game, MA, as well, along with the 20 turnovers that the Mercury conceded. 5 of them single-handedly done by DeWanna Bonner tonight. But again, Marquez, this has become a Halloween nightmare, to say the least, for the Mercury. Again, 2 games. In 2 games, they've been plastered against the wall by a very loaded and talented Minnesota team. MA, overall thoughts on Phoenix's side of the story, at least in tonight's loss, now going back home down 0-2, facing elimination on Sunday afternoon?
Well, turnovers, missed layups, poor defense. It's just a lot you can point to. Minnesota had 11 offensive rebounds, and you can't let that happen. I know BG wasn't out there for a majority of the game because of foul trouble, but looking at her, 2 points and 2 rebounds, that's unacceptable in my opinion for someone of her size and ability. I mean, she's playing like she's a rookie, or at least she played like that tonight, and she's not. Like Shorty said, she doesn't really play smart when it comes to playing defense. She doesn't move, and she's always wanting to block. But she doesn't have to. All she just has to do is contest. I mean, at her size, at 6'8", 6'9", contesting, just putting your arms up, that should be enough. You don't have to block everything. But her getting into foul trouble is kind of set the tone, and Phoenix was never really able to rebound from that.
Tanisha, as we now go to Minnesota, more of the same, really. Not much else to really talk much about with Minnesota, because we saw them play the same exact way on Wednesday. But I'd probably say, though, that the defense really picked up the scraps at certain points in this game. I mean, as I already alluded to, 12 steals in the game, 11 offensive boards that Marquez brought up. They had 34 combined rebounds in the game. Shorty, was there really much, I guess, difference in your mind from game 1 as opposed to game 2? Or maybe was there something different tonight from Minnesota tonight as maybe opposed to game 1 in your mind? What do you think and why?
I don't, they made many adjustments, from game 1 to game 2. I just think, they stuck with their game plan. They kept focused, and even though they were ready, for any adjustments that Phoenix were going to make, sadly for Phoenix, they didn't make too many adjustments. They got even worse. It was close. It was much better than in game 1, but for Minnesota, they really didn't have to adjust much, because for Phoenix, it was Penny Taylor, doing still ended up with 31 points. Quarter, it just seemed like the team was exhausted, and it looked like, they pretty much gave up, and it was still, getting that effort, continuously driving to the basket, and,
All right, folks,
crazy things happen.
We're still having some minor technical faults on Shorty's part, folks. We'll hopefully get those resolved. In a few minutes here. So again, Marquez, not a whole lot changes for the Lynx in the game tonight, as I said. Pretty much the same story we saw, of course, over on Wednesday night. But again, MA, I think though that there was probably that they pretty much turned the defense up a couple notches tonight. We're just seeing of how they were getting in lanes. They were being more. It looked like they were getting physical, but also jumping passing routes, and also a lot of inbound plays by Phoenix. Marquez, they were getting to set up their offense in the Phoenix attacking front court tonight. Marquez, did you notice anything different tonight for Minnesota tonight as opposed to game one, or what's your overall thoughts on how Minnesota played tonight, maybe as opposed to their win on Wednesday night?
Yeah, it was pretty much the same. The only difference was, the game was closer, but it would still end up being a double-digit win for Minnesota. But like you said, they were aggressive in terms of pursuing the ball and playing defense. They were trapping, getting in the passing lanes, and that in turn created easy opportunities on the other end for them. And with a team like Minnesota, you can't allow them to do that. And 20 turnovers, that's just way too much. And some of that was Minnesota's defense, and some of that was Phoenix just not playing smartly. So if they want to win at least one of these games, they have to clean up their turnovers. And they just have to play better defense and all. Because, you can't allow Minnesota to get more opportunities.
So again, folks, in game two tonight from St. Paul, Lynx 96, Mercury 86. The Lynx head now to Phoenix for game three of the semifinals with a chance to clinch and move on to the WNBA finals with a win on Sunday with their 10-point win over the Mercury tonight from the X in St. Paul. Next game for the night, guys, the Sky and Sparks. Also pretty much more of the same from Wednesday night. LA romping Chicago, throwing up 99 on the board. They win 99-84 over Chicago this evening from the Staples Center in downtown LA. Final box score of the night for the Chicago Sky. Clarissa Dos Santos off the bench, 15 points. Jameer Faulkner, 14 points off the bench as well. Cappy Pondexter, the leading starter scoring-wise for the Sky tonight with 13 points. Tamara Young with 12. Courtney Vandersloot and Allie Quigley chipped in 11 points each for a combined total of 22 points. Erica De Souza with 6. And Jessica Breland with 2. Imani Boyette and Cheyenne Parker did play but did not score tonight. Elena Deladon missing her 8th straight game with that injured thumb. And, of course, Benijah Laney also out tonight due to her injured ACL earlier this season. For the LA Sparks, they got a 40 combined point effort out of both Candace Parker and Jantel Lavender, who went 12 of 11 from the field tonight. They had 20 points apiece. Nneka Ogumake chips in 18. Chrissy Tolliver with 15 points in the ballgame. Also scoring tonight was Essence Carson with 11. 4 of the 5 LA starters were in double digits tonight in this game. Also scoring tonight for LA, Chelsea Gray with 9. Elena Beard with 2. Ana Dabovic and Yelena Dublovic also had 2 points. Sandrine Gruda, Evgena Belikova, and On Waters all got in, but did not score in garbage time this evening. The game played from the Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles, California. Total hits tonight, 7,855. Time of the game, 2 hours and 8 minutes. The officials tonight were Eric Bruden, Amy Bonner, and Billy Smith. No text issued in the game. 5 times the lead changed, and 4 times the game was tied. And Shorty, starting with you on this one. Again, not much else in this game changes either, except that the fact that LA gets Parker and Lavender combining on a big 20-point game for both, 40 combined points for LA from Parker and Lav. And for Chicago tonight, Shorty, starting off with the Sky, the bench played a pretty big role in keeping this game close, but in the end, you are seeing the Sky, though, guys, sadly, and this is kind of what we saw, though, in 2 years ago when Elena Deladon was playing with her back injury, that this Chicago team is not the same with her not playing on the floor so far. And again, sure, that falls on Quigley. It falls on Sloot to kind of keep his team afloat, and Cappy Pondexter. And it really has not been a very good recipe so far for Chicago. Shorty, your thoughts on this game between the Sky and Sparks? And really, did anything in your mind change from game one as opposed to tonight in your mind? What do you think?
No, not really. Just like the first game, it was pretty much the same result nearly. I mean, just sadly for Chicago, and actually Eric alluded to this during our the semis, and he pretty much predicted a sweep because it is a matchup problem for the Sky. It is true, and no one on the guys roster for Agumake or Parker. I mean, both players are just pretty much have been their way with scoring the first two games for in NECA. They once again they continuously, switch Park for some reason, which doesn't make any sense. Is ripping her to shred. We'll say though, it was a better when Clarissa Dos Santos in this game, and she was pretty decent. I mean, when you look at her tonight, I think 15 points. If I was Pokey, I'd make a lineup change and start Dos Santos because nothing is really working for the Sky at this point.
So again, Marquez, Los Angeles has their way with Chicago for the second game in a row. Again, 99-84 this evening. And, once again, Marquez, I brought up, I mean, we all saw firsthand in the finals again in 2014 when EDD was battling that back problem again, really was not able to be 100% for that matchup. And now she's been gone 8 games now. And it's probably still not looking good for her for game 3, perhaps at this point. And again, Marquez, Shorty, even though again, we've had some technical problems on Shorty's, but again, she said maybe a lineup change would probably work because again, Dos Santos really was a key contributor for the Sky tonight. But again, it was just, not enough scoring, power or prowess behind her tonight. Again, and again, that burden of scoring has kind of gone to Sloot, to Pondexter, to Quigley to kind of keep Chicago afloat. But again, MA, overall thoughts and overall take of anything in your mind changed from game 2 as opposed to game 1 in your mind? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think we all knew the series was going to be determined down low in the paint. And just like game 1, Mecca, Parker, and Lavender pretty much had their way and were able to do whatever they wanted. And like Shorty was saying, Chicago really has no one that can account for any of these players, really. Because, I mean, you've seen all of them have really solid games in the first 2 games of the series. Chicago just has to find a way to just rally and be able to just, like, I guess, have a more concerted effort down there. But I really don't know if there's much they can do at this point since they're down 0-2. I mean, it's not a death wish, but I mean, it's really hard to come back from. But Dos Santos is one of the bright spots for them. 6 steals, 8 rebounds, 15 points. I think since nothing else has been working down low for them, I just think you have to insert her into the lineup and see what she can do.
So, again, folks, Los Angeles winning 99-84. Now, again, Shorty, if we can still hear you. Again, we've had some minor problems on your end. But, again, now for Los Angeles tonight, man, oh, man, nothing for the Sparks nor the Lynx, but even for the Sparks guys tonight really changed. Again, it was Candace Park with a big game, along with Neck having a big game. But tonight it was both CP and J-Lav tonight. Janta Lavender got, folks, 20 points off the bench. She shot 90.9% from the field tonight, 10 of 11. Did not miss her first 7 shots and was 7 for 7 starting off the game tonight. And, Shorty, we've heard Pam Ward and LaChana Robinson conversing about this on both broadcasts that it seems like perhaps at this point in time that Candace Parker has played probably the best WNBA basketball of maybe her entire 8-year career so far, of how she has simply taken over and dominated so far in both these playoff games. Now, again, it is against a pretty somewhat of a lesser opponent until, we've always heard, wait till it's a bigger game against Minnesota or Phoenix or what have you. But I guess, Shorty, overall thoughts about Candace Parker sort of, kind of, I guess, having, somewhat of a, different mentality this playoff series as opposed to maybe previous years in your mind. What do you think?
I think the difference for Candace in the series, that she has way more help to rely on. Now, of course, this isn't a different pieces. Pieces such as Carson and Chelsea Gray. So for Los Angeles to have those other pieces step up, now she can nominate, but do all the dominating. You have NECA, who really came into her own this season, an MVP season. So with that in mind, that has really helped Parker and the team overall elevate to a higher level. So just having those pieces step up when needed to be is helping the team overall.
So again, Marquez, we've pretty much have heard this recently, of course, with Game 1 and Game 2 of how we've heard Pam and LaChina really talking about probably again about how Candace Parker's probably played maybe the best basketball of her pro career so far. Again, you're as Shorty brought up, though, I mean, there are other puzzle pieces behind her this time around with, Nneka and Lav off the bench. Everyone looks like they're refreshed, but I guess Marquez, what have you seen differently from Candace Parker this postseason specifically as opposed to maybe last year, 2014, or recent years in the past? They have, of course, gone down in flames in either round one or before the WNBA finals in your mind.
She looks really focused. And I think if you ask anyone on that question, I will tell you, they came in with the mission of winning the championship this year. And you can really see that in the playoffs. They've really been getting down, playing defense, playing hard every possession on offense and defense. And it's gotten them to the position that they're in now. And you can just see it. Everyone looks focused. Everyone looks like they want to achieve that goal of winning that championship this year. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to finish that goal.
Now, Shorty, Los Angeles now sits one win away from their first WNBA Finals appearance in 13 years. Last time they were there, of course, guys, 2003, where they lost to the worst of first Detroit Shock. Shorty, in your mind, now again, I have kind of thought about this recently. Now again, this is only if and when both teams clinch their series final, their series on Sunday. Shorty, could WNBA, Shorty, in your mind, could a lack of WNBA Finals experience in your mind possibly hurt Los Angeles in your mind if, in fact, they do go up against Minnesota in the league finals this year? Yes or no? What do you think?
That's definitely an interesting question because while this would be at least this team's, if, they were to advance, it would be their first time to the WNBA Finals. But I wouldn't say I wouldn't say experience would be a factor. I would just say just overall team.
Fair response. So again, Marquez, once more, this again could potentially be the Sparks' first. Again, Marquez, going to you again, folks. We apologize, but again, we've had some technical problems tonight on Shorty's end of our broadcast, so we're working on getting those fixed for you folks for tonight and for our next show on Monday night. But again, Marquez, you kind of hear a lot, though, of course, in most sports, again, young teams or teams that aren't normally in the mix that get to the league finals normally are always considered an underdog. Marquez, would you probably agree? Now, again, LA has not been to the finals in 13 years. Again, a win on Sunday would mark their first trip to the finals since 2003. Marquez, could that be perhaps a factor against the Sparks in your mind if they were, in fact, to face the Lynx or the Mercury in the finals? Is the lack of WNBA finals, not playoff, but finals experience in your mind, when it really counts for all the marbles?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Considering LA has really not had the most success when it comes to playoffs, I think you can say that they'll go into the finals as the underdog, if only because Minnesota has done it so many times, and it was really expected of them to be a contender, even though they weren't picked by the GMs. Phoenix was. Minnesota has proven pretty much all year that they are the team to beat, in my opinion. But it's not like LA can't, because they have. So it just really depends on how, I guess you can say, how aggressive and determined LA comes out. They can't be intimidated by Minnesota, because then you've already mentally lost. So I just think in their case, if they are to get that underdog mentality, they have to take advantage of it and not use it as a way to play victim, I guess.
So again, folks, some responses from our panel about perhaps could finals inexperience affect the Sparks in the next round should, in fact, they get to the WNBA finals again. They have not been there since they were defeated by the worst of first Detroit Shock in 2003, 2 years removed from winning both their first and second And, of course, the last team to repeat as WNBA champs, the LA Sparks of 01 and 02. Again, folks, to recap your Friday night Game 2 box scores and final scores tonight, both teams that won the night take a stranglehold 2-0 series lead. Back on the road now, the Lynx over the Mercury tonight, 96-86, and the Sparks over the Sky, 99-84. Folks, a pretty interesting stat to know, along with the new, with the intrigue and the excitement of the new format. Well, already, guys, the 2016 playoffs and postseason has already brought unprecedented offensive numbers in the postseason. Through the first 6 games, that includes the two single elimination rounds and the first games of the best-of-5 semifinals, teams have averaged both more points, more assists, more free throws. They have shot higher field goal percentages than ever before with the new format. At this point, to put this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, teams have averaged almost 93.8 points per game. That is a new high set back in 2009 of 84 points even. Teams have shot 49.6%. That's a new high from 44.7 in 2010. There have been at least 18 made free throws in every game. That's up from 2009's 17.7. There have been 20.8 assists per game combined. That is up between both 07 and 2010 at 17.3. The offensive rating has been increased to 114.2, up a few points or some points from 2010 of 102.6. Effective field goal shooting at 53.7% is now up from 2010 at 49.3, and true shooting percentage at 58.3 is higher than 54.1 in 2010. Not only that as well, guys, a few games from this postseason have already topped the WNBA record books for most points scored in a playoff game by a team, when both the Lynx and Sky threw up 100-plus on the scoreboard. Of course, the Lynx put up 113 over PHX in Game 1 of their series. And, of course, the Sky beat Atlanta by throwing up 108 on September 25th. Those are now the third and fourth highest scoring games by a single team in playoff history at this point. So, Shorty, as much as we were probably skeptical about this new format, and these one-and-done games are, too college-like, it's not going to work. Well, we've been wrong in all 3 aspects in regards to how the scoring has been up, where all the offensive numbers, Shorty, have gone up in some capacity. Shorty, overall thoughts on how the new format has really helped, not hurt, but helped the scoring go up in the postseason for the WNBA?
I think one of the things that help, is matchups. And of course, with this new format, it's not the same old matchups, the same old Western Conference versus Eastern Conference. Now it's cross, conference matchups. So is allowed to play the West, and because of that, you're going to have, numbers to go up, as teams fill out each other, especially in those one and dones. And then now in the semis, one of the things that contribute to that now is blowouts. These blowouts in these semis rounds. So of course, the numbers are going to go up. And of course, in the semis, Phoenix and Chicago are not really the best defensive teams in the league. So those are definitely one of the factors to, what are going up.
So again, Marquez, in spite of how very skeptical we all probably were about this new format, it's pretty much worked to perfection right now. Again, we've had, pretty much every offensive category go up. Again, we've had a few games already make the WNBA record books in regards to points scored by a team or combined points being scored, even points in a playoff game by a player. So, Marquez, in spite of all the negativity, perhaps maybe all the naysayers about the new format, so far it's worked to perfection with all these, records being shattered and new records being made. M.A., how about your thoughts about how scoring and offense has really gone up so far through the first games of the semis and also through the elimination games so far in rounds 1 and 2?
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to echo what Shorty said. I think it just shows the different matchups, and it just really puts that into focus. Because, you've seen in these games, it's not been the same old matchups every game. It's something new and fresh each time out. And I think that's what's leading to these blowouts or offensive production numbers, because some teams just aren't used to these other ones and they can't really match up as well. So I think that's kind of playing into it.
So again, folks, to check out more about that, log on to WNBA.com and figure out and find out actually about the recent changing of the guard with the offense going up underneath the new format for the WNBA. Right now, guys, on WNBAshop.com, they have one store for all 12 teams. You can get free shipping on any U.S. order over $25. Just use the promo code at checkout of WNBA25 and get 25% off your order and get free shipping as well on yours over on WNBA.com. One shop, 12 teams, WNBAstore.com on the WNBA.com or WNBA website. With that, guys, again, 2 more games back on NFL Sunday at 12 noon and 2 o'clock. And by the way, guys, should mention both games will be shown on ESPN1. ESPN will televise both games on Sunday afternoon. The Sparks and Sky will tip off your coverage at 12 noon Pacific. And then the Lynx and Mercury from TSRA at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And again, both games being shown on ESPN. Shorty, a lot of people are saying that this is where the road will end for both Chicago and Phoenix. Shorty, what do you think, though, first about the Lynx and Mercury for Game 3 of their series down there at Talking Sea Resort Arena? What do you got?
Well, I want to believe that Phoenix might steal a game, but with how the previous 2 games have gone so far, it's not looking good for Phoenix, and this series might end up being a sweep.
So Shorty's going to say it ends for Phoenix on Sunday. Marquez, what do you think about this one?
Sweep.
Break out the brooms. No one's going to give Phoenix a chance again. I think all of us here said 3-1 for the series. Phoenix would really, guys, have to play A+, rock solid, no errors. They would have to play a perfect 40 minutes, guys. We know they're capable of doing it, but is it too little too late, perhaps? I don't know. I really don't know still. I mean, guys, we know that it is tough, though, sometimes to go and play in Phoenix. Of course, those fans are going to be they're going to be, ready to roll, and they're going to be making noise in this one. So it's going to be tough, at least. But, hey, Minnesota did win last year in that decisive Game 3 to go into the finals last season. So I think it ends perhaps, too, for Phoenix as well. So all 3 of us will say it's going to be a sweep, not a 4-game series for them. Also, of course, guys, Sparks and Sky will hook up as well to kick off the games on Sunday at noon. Shorty, what do you think, though, about this one? Is this probably going to be do you agree with this being perhaps a potential sweep as well for Los Angeles?
Yes, and this is did 3-1, but if Pokey doesn't take my advice and at least start Dos Santos, then Candace Parker's going to continue to run circles around Tamara Young because they have no answer for Batman or Robin and J-Lab, so sweet.
Well, apparently Parker called Lab the microwave in her post-game presser tonight, so we'll get confirmation from that later on. Marquez, what do you think, though? 3-1, or does it end at 3-0 for LA in your mind?
No, I think LA is probably going to get the sweep again as well, so...
Everyone's going with sweep. As now, folks, we welcome in our outstanding correspondent, Crystal Thomas, joining us somewhere on the gridlocked Los Angeles, California freeways, going back to her house up in the San Fernando Valley. KT, good to see you tonight. Of course, you were there for the Sparks' lopsided win in Game 2 over the Chicago Sky to take the stranglehold on the series back to Chi-Town. KT, good to see you tonight. How's it going tonight? Good to see you.
Hello. I'm actually on my journey to go get some hot wings. But I am doing well. My bad for the delay. It was having a little bit of issues.
Well, the old anecdote of winner, chicken dinner for the Sparks tonight. But again, Crystal, of course, you were there tonight. Of course, I did see you quickly during a replay on ESPN when they were reviewing a few calls, along with my sis, Sabrina White, who was also courtside tonight. Crystal, I had asked Marquez and Shorty, if there was any differences or maybe a disparity between how the Sparks played in Game 1 as opposed to Game 2. But, Crystal, was there really anything you saw differently from the Sparks tonight as opposed to Game 1 in your mind tonight? What's your overall final thoughts?
Man, a difference I would say is, my bad, my GPS is trying to get me to some hot wings. But I would say the biggest difference that I see for them is they played with more urgency, and I think they had a lot to do with the fact that they played the game. I think they were a little slow coming out the first game, which was Wednesday, because they hadn't played in 2 weeks. So timing is everything. They had to get their timing back. They had to get the feel of the ball back. They had to get the feel of the game back. And I think now that they've played the game and they're not as nervous as they were, I think they're okay. I think that's probably the biggest difference I noticed is that the game flowed a little bit better for them, unlike the first game.
Now, Crystal, you will play a two-man game for the time being right now as we, of course, want to get your take on everything. So, again, the Sparks win pretty convincing again, 99-84 over Chicago. And, again, Crystal, with Chicago at least, again, we talked about, sort of dating back to 2014, of course, when Elena Delle Donne was playing but still missing time because of that back problem she had when they were in the finals against Phoenix. And again, she misses her 8th straight game night because of that thumb. And as we had talked about before you got on here, was you're sort of seeing how life without EDD has been somewhat right now for Chicago. Of course, they picked up the scraps in the postseason when they beat Atlanta. But Crystal, I guess, has the absence of EDD perhaps doomed Chicago where this series potentially ends on Sunday in your mind? What do you think?
You know what? It does doom them, but I think even if they would have had EDD, it would have still probably been pretty bad for them. I don't think they would have. I don't think they would have lasted that long.
And now, Crystal's, segue back to Los Angeles, the side of the story real quick. Well, Crystal's going to have to hop out of the hangout real quick. So probably that GPS system wanting to get her to Buffalo Wild Wings before she wanted to get on here. So we'll wait for Crystal to come on back in here. But I guess Shorty and Marquez to kind of, look back over again. So we all said 3-1 for both series, but again, now it's going to be pretty much 3-0. Shorty, in your mind, what does Phoenix and Chicago have to do in your mind to get a win on their side of the story here and keep the series alive to force a game 4 in your mind?
I think both teams will need to step up their defensive intensity. And also, I think a lineup change, once again, might benefit them. I'm not sure if they'll win the game overall, but a lineup change might be beneficial. I read where someone on Twitter said should add for Phoenix, should add Bonner to the starting lineup. And I suggested Dos Santos for the Chicago Sky. So a lineup change may, help them.
So Marquez, Shorty is going to go with a lineup change for both teams. And in your mind, what does both PHX and Chicago have to do to force at least one more game and keep your season afloat for one more night? What do you think?
I don't really even know. I guess, like Shorty said, a lineup change, but really, I don't even know if that's going to help because it's just been a mess.
I mean, of course, guys, the old antidote is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at this point, if you're down 0-2 and obviously in a 5-game series, there's, of course, no margin for error now because you lose one more game, it's all over with as opposed to the traditional 4 out of 7. But, Shorty, I'm probably with you, though, that if, in fact, at least try a different experiment. If you, of course, if you're trying to, get in your car to start and your keys don't work, of course, you jiggle the key in the socket or what have you. But at this point, it can't hurt to try a different equation or a different experiment to see if you can formulate that winning equation. Now, again, I agree with Shorty about Dos Santos because, again, she was pretty much the big offensive spark for Chicago in this game tonight, this evening. But I agree, though, with you, Shorty, that I probably would say a lineup change, whether it's Bonner coming in to start for a change for Phoenix, if it's Dos Santos starting for the Sky. And, there's a lot of different ways, but at least as of right now, we're considering lineup changes being made by both teams at this point in time to get them back in the mix at this point. But again, folks, to recap once more for Sunday's action, at least, again, Game 3 of both series will be played between both the Lynx and Mercury and the Sparks and Sky. It'll be LA Chicago kicking off the Sunday action at 12 noon Pacific time, followed up by the Lynx and Mercury at 2 o'clock. Both games will be on ESPN on Sunday, with them not having any NFL coverage that Sunday evening. With that, Shorty and Marquez, we will hold out hope for Crystal to get back in here. If not, we'll call it a night following getting your final take. Shorty, what's your final take on the night's 2 games with both the Sparks and Lynx putting 2-0 strangleholds on their series? What do you think?
Sadly, it was pretty much the same night from Game 1. Phoenix and both Chicago tried to at least do something a little bit different to change, the outcome. But it didn't work out. It was pretty much the same. So we'll see what happens on Sunday.
So, Marquez, how about your final thoughts on the night's games? Again, the Lynx and Sparks now one win away from the league finals for all the marbles for 2016. Overall thoughts, MA, on tonight's action?
Yeah, pretty much more of the same. I expect that to happen again in these next games. So maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it.
So again, folks, your Friday night game 2 semifinal final scores again. Los Lynx over the Mercury 96-86, and the Sparks over the Sky 99-84. Both Minnesota and Los Angeles will now take 2-0 leads on the road to Chicago in the desert to face the Mercury and Sky once more. And again, of games at this point once more on Sunday afternoon, along with your NFL football, if you're going to be watching anything on Sunday. Sparks Sky, 12 noon on ESPN, and then the Lynx and Mercury also at 2 o'clock, both games again on ESPN. All right, folks, Crystal Thomas back with us here again, finding her way to get some hot wings following the Sparks win. So, Crystal, let's stay with you on the Sparks game tonight. We know that, of course, you probably had or did miss the Merc and Lynx game tonight, but Crystal, we brought up, though, about Candace Parker sort of playing, on a higher level and maybe this postseason as opposed to maybe recent postseasons. But again, it was Parker game 1 leading the way and Parker leading the way as well tonight, game 2, again with 20-point effort, and was 2 dimes away from a triple-double tonight. Crystal, I guess, what have you seen differently from CP maybe this year as opposed to maybe recent, playoff series maybe in your mind? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I want to apologize. I think I hit a rough patch on the freeway. Second, she's playing with more tenacity. I mean, she knows that her clock for probably winning a championship is running out. She's not getting any younger. She knows that they have a good core that they have right now of her, NECA, Lav, AB, and KT. And I think she's really happy to finally have somewhat of a bench, not a whole bench, but she's, they have a couple of assets to come off the bench and give them the points that they need. So I think she feels it. I mean, I think all of us in here can feel it too. It's a different team. It's a different atmosphere. And I think she can feel that. And I think she's a lot more motivated because of it.
Now, Crystal, staying with this game again. Now, we know that Minnesota, and that pretty much right now it's collision course for LA, Minnesota. Of course, we wanted it so badly after their 3 epic games they played this year, except maybe the second one with Sparks ran the Lynx off the floor and won by 22 at Target Center. But Crystal, looking at it right now, of course, the Lynx have at least 4, maybe 5 studs on their team. But right now, Crystal, though, the Sparks are kind of building a little 2 or 3 person, their own version of a little mini 3-headed monster right now between both Aguma K, Parker, and Lab off the bench. Crystal, I guess, what have you seen differently from all 3 of those players through 2 games in the postseason as opposed to maybe regular season games in your mind?
Oh, man. Motivation is one. You have that 3-headed monster down there in the post with NECA, Lab, and Parker, and they've just been on a tear. I mean, especially NECA, obviously, she's the MVP of the league, and I think that's one thing. I think the Sparks are generally happy that they have NECA as MVP, that they want to do it for her. They know that it doesn't just stop at the MVP trophy. They know that this season would be a failure if they don't, it's pretty much championship or bust. I mean, yeah, the MVP trophy is all nice and dandy and it's all fine and everything, but it doesn't mean anything. I mean, they want a team stat, not just the individual stat where they have a player as MVP, where they win the championship, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's been 14 years, and I think they finally want to bring one back to LA. It just seems like they're playing with so much dignity and so much pride, and they're playing so much harder. You can tell, you can see it. I mean, it's even being there today. This is a different team. Like, this team talks to each other. The bench is engaged. The captains are talking to everyone and not just certain players. The coaches are involved. So you can just see it's a different atmosphere.
Now, Crystal, one more point I brought up about the game. Now, again, if in fact the Sparks win, of course, on Sunday, they would head to the WNBA Finals for the first time in 13 years, of course, when they were ousted by the worst to first Detroit Shock that season. Mm-hmm. Crystal, in your mind now, obviously Minnesota and LA, as I said, are on a collision course for that, if in fact they take care of business on Sunday. And Crystal, I know that probably I'll get some crap and some nonsense from LA fans about this, but it's the flat out truth, and the truth does hurt. Could finals inexperience for this LA team hurt them in the finals in your mind? So they've not been there as a team since since 2003. In your mind, what do you think?
I'm sorry, you got choppy. I think you said, can it hurt them for not being there for 14 years? Is that the question?
Yes.
It depends, because I feel like this team is so ready to be there, but at the same time, none of these people have ever been in finals. Not CP, not KT, I don't think Elena Beard's ever even been to a final. So I think there's definitely going to be some nerves there, because this is definitely a big stage. You know, this is bigger than anything else. So I think, of course, it's going to be some nerves, but at the same time, the way that they're playing, I think that they will figure it out. I think they will, say, okay, we got here. We're not going to come this far just to lose. And I think it will only hurt them if they let it get to them. But if they keep calm and play basketball the way they've been playing, and kind of look at it like, yes, a big game, but we got to play this game like we played any other game, I think they'll be okay.
So with that, folks, one final time, your final scores from the night's Game 2s. Lynx over the Mercury, 96-86. Sparks, 99. Sky, 84. Both teams, again, taking 2-0 strangleholds on their series. On the road on Sunday, Sparks, Sky, high noon Pacific on ESPN. Lynx and Merc, 2 o'clock Pacific on Sunday. Both games on ESPN in their entirety on Sunday afternoon. With that, folks, we hope you guys enjoyed Games 2 of the semifinals, Game 3 for both teams. Again, coming up on Sunday. We'll be back on air on Monday night following the weekend of rest and recuperation from what have you, of course. With that, though, folks, for our good buddy Marquez Anderson joining us, of course, from Louisiana State University, from StarsHoops.net, and for the SoCal tag team of Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart, this is Cal McClurg signing off for the night and for the weekend from Studio 171 in San Diego. Folks, take care and good night. See you back here on Monday. Bye-bye.